This is Ross Driscoll. I'm the President and CEO of Nationally Announced Insurance Brokers in Southern California. What makes our agency different is I went to school not to be a contractor when I grew up. My dad was a builder. I didn't want to be a contractor, except somehow along the way I ended up obtaining my own general, concrete, and asbestos contractor's licenses. I've owned insurance agencies for 32 years, as well as insurance restoration and reconstruction companies. I currently hold a fire and casualty agent and broker license, surplus lines license, special surplus lines license, life and disability licenses, as well as a reinsurance intermediary license. I'm continually invited to speak at numerous contractor meetings, especially restoration contractors and plumbers contractors meetings across the United States, and have also been published in numerous articles in restoration industry magazines as well as plumbing industry magazines. Our agency is currently licensed in 46 states and expanding. Our agency is known for writing restoration contractors all over the country. Depending which state it is, we're either the largest or second largest writer of restoration contractors all across the United States. Plumbers share many of the same types of hazards and exposures that restoration contractors do. There are significant gaps in insurance coverage as a result of the mold and the pollution exclusions, which were put into insurance policies in about 2002 and thereafter by all the carriers. Plumbers and restoration contractors, plumbers like restoration contractors, work near asbestos-containing materials, lead, bloodborne pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and mold, whether knowingly or unknowingly on a daily basis. The only fix-it to handle these types of exposures is in the environmental insurance marketplace. Today I'm going to talk about the need and why plumbing contractors should absolutely be carrying contractor pollution liability coverage. Any contractor, no matter what the trade, who touches a structure where there may have been water damage should be carrying contractor pollution liability coverage. Any structure where there was 70% humidity, a carbon source, and 48 hours of time, there's the beginnings of mold growth in that structure, according to the IICRC water damage guidelines. Emergency services providers cannot always get a structure dry in 48 hours. The restorer or the plumber did not cause the mold, the water caused the mold. But this doesn't stop somebody from suing your contractor or insured and filing a lawsuit and making the carrier defend them. And as we all know, most lawsuits today aren't driven by the indemnity, they're driven by the defense costs. Restorers and plumbers always work or consistently work around asbestos, lead, sewage, bacteria, bloodborne pathogens, viruses, and mold on a daily basis. These hazards are completely excluded on the general liability policies for the last 8 to 9 years. Also, the chemicals that restoration contractors use for cleaning and the biocides that they use can also cause alleged allergic reactions to humans and animals. And also, the chemicals that are used by a mitigation company to dry a structure prior to the plumber's work taking place can also make the occupants allegedly sick. As we all know, everybody that sets foot on the job at one time or another is in the liability loop and can all be pulled in to defend a claim. When writing plumbing contractors, most people think that the biggest exposure for a plumbing contractor is mold. That's the farthest thing from the truth. The largest claims that we have in our agency aren't mold claims, they're asbestos and lead claims. The two largest losses we had last year were actually asbestos-related claims. The California Contractor State License Board and federal EPA state that it is illegal to mechanically abrade, disturb, sand, cut through any building material that may potentially contain asbestos or lead in that material. Those materials can include drywall, they can include older baseboards. Those are some of the building materials that typically plumbers will have to break into to make an emergency repair on a job site. All pre-1985 buildings require asbestos testing before disturbing construction materials such as drywall or base. My personal experience as a contractor myself when doing several commercial jobs after the Northridge earthquake was that about 50% of all the structures that were built before 1985 that we came into contact with had asbestos in either the drywall, the stucco, the wallboard. It could have been in the asbestos could be in the texture, the spray texture for the walls. Asbestos is also can be found in popcorn ceilings. It's all over the place. So the $100 question for your plumber is he testing for asbestos or lead before opening up any wall spaces? Probably not. It's an emergency. So he's going out there, making the fix. The restoration contractor is out there starting the drying processes immediately, and nobody's waiting for test results before they break into a wall cavity of a pre-1985 building, because everybody's worried about the delays and the possible and possibly having a rainforest on your hands for not stopping the water leak and not getting the place dry immediately. In addition, before any of your plumbing contractors mechanically abrade or disrupt any pre-1975 building materials, they should be testing for lead as well. The single biggest question when buying contractor pollution liability is to understand the difference between claims made and occurrence forms. An educated insurance buyer must understand the difference between the forms. It's important to understand these coverage triggers, as the insurance market is expected to firm up and harden in the very near future. The first coverage form I'd like to discuss is the occurrence form. Occurrence is typically what you normally think of when you're writing general liability policies. You have, let's say you have a policy that's in force from 09 to 010, and you have a construction defects claim that comes in year 15 for a job you did in the 09 to 010 policy. Your 09 to 010 policy would step up and respond under an occurrence form, because you're allowed to report claims anytime in the future for work that was performed during this policy period. Now, typically with occurrence, you have a separate $1 million limit each year, using $1 million as an example. So you'd have $1 million for 12 to 13, $1 million for 11 to 10, $1 million for 10 to 11. So you have separate limits for each and every individual year. These types of forms are normally written for insureds that do not have severe underwriting issues, and typically with occurrence, the defense is outside the limits. It's unlimited. The defense costs do not erode the general liability limits. Made forms are different from occurrence forms in that the trigger of the coverage is not who you were with when you did the job or have a construction defects claim presented. The trigger is what carrier were you with when the claim was presented. As an example, in the 08 to 09 year, you may have Company A, 09 to 10 Company B, 10 to 11 Company C, and 11 to 12 Company D. If a claim is presented in the 11 to 12 year for work that was performed after the original retro date or the original inception date of the claims made policy, and say the work was performed in the 08 to 09 period, you're going to trigger not Company A, who the insured was with in 08 to 09, but you're going to trigger Company D, who the insured was with in the 11 to 12 year when the claim was presented for work that was previously done. So the trigger, what sets off the coverage, is not who you were with when you did the job. The trigger is who you were with when the claim is presented to the carrier. Usually with claims made, the defense are inside the limits. And the other thing with claims made, unlike occurrence where you have a separate million each year, with claims made, you have one limit that transcends through all the policy periods. So if you look at the example, from the 08 to 012 year, you don't have a separate million available for each year. You have 1 million that transcends through all the years to cover all the claims that can be presented for all those years. So when you're purchasing claims made coverage, and especially since defense costs are inside the limits and can erode the limits, it's necessary to buy bigger limits as the years go by, because you have greater exposure to loss as the years go by. One other thing, by looking at the example, you'll notice the stepped up gradations on my PowerPoint. Typically with claims made, the premium starts low the first year and goes up a little bit each year, because the chances of having a claim presented in the '08 to '09 year for work that are presented in '08 to '09 are very slim. However, the chances of having a claim presented to 11 to 12 for something that happened during '08 to '09 are greater. Hence, claims made starts off as very inexpensive, but as the years go by, the premiums go up because there's more exposure to loss as the years go by. Before purchasing any claims made insurance policy, it's critical that the broker and the insured properly evaluate the extended reporting period section in the claims made policy that is being proposed to the insured. It is detailed in the extended reporting period section of all claims made policies. Many of these extended reporting periods or tails or tail coverage can be offered for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 5 years, depending on the carrier. Most companies typically will offer a 3-year extended reporting period for 2 times 1 year's premium. However, when reading the back of a policy, some companies may only offer a 1-year tail or a 2-year tail or a 5-year tail. So before buying any claims made coverage, it's critical to know what the cost may be for a tail if somebody elects to purchase a tail at the end of the expired claims made policy. It also becomes a huge problem, the tail, when occurrence policies actually become available in the marketplace. For contractors, it's critical to know how a tail can possibly affect them. In many states, the statute of limitations for construction defects claims can be 7, and in California, 10 years. From the time the job was done. So, if you were to purchase a 3-year tail according to the example and pay 2 times 1 year's premium, the problem you have is you may have bought the extended reporting period and you paid for the privilege of reporting claims after the expiration of the claims made policy. But what happens when a claim comes in at year 7, year 8, year 9 for work you did back in '09, '10, or '11 when a claim comes in 2019 or 2020? Even if you purchased the tail, you would have no coverage because the claim is being reported for work done in the past more than 3 years after the extended reporting period that you purchased for 2 times 1 year's premium. So using the PowerPoint as an example, let's say the insured was paying $10,000 in '09, $15,000 in 2010, and in 2011 was paying $20,000, and they want to buy a tail. The new CPL policy, which is Occurrence, may be $15,000, so one would think you're going to save $5,000. The problem is if you're going to buy a tail, it's 2 times 1 year's premium to buy that 3-year extended reporting period. So the insured has to pay $40,000 to save the $5,000 to get the better form. The problem once again is even if you purchase a tail and a claim is presented after the tail, there is no coverage by buying a tail because the tail only lasted for 3 years. Let's discuss prior acts coverage or nose coverage. A nose is the opposite of a tail. So by looking at the example, you'll notice that this insured had a claims made policy from '09 to 10, 10 to 11, and 11 to 12. And they wanted to purchase an occurrence policy in the 12 to 13 year. Well, essentially, what a nose does is essentially converts that claims made coverage that the insured had in '09 to 12 into occurrence. So when you purchase a nose, let's say a claim comes in '14 or '15 for a job that was done in '09 to 10, that nose is going to be in that new occurrence policy in the 12 to 13 years. So any future claims made for work that was done in the past will trigger under this new occurrence policy that has a nose for the 2012 to 2013 year. The advantage of a nose is it provides coverage for claims which may be reported for the prior claims made period. And the biggest advantage of a nose is it's not limited to 3 years like a tail. Noses are readily available right now. The market is still soft enough. Companies are still offering terms for noses. Now is a great time to actually get a nose if you've got claims made coverage right now. And the biggest advantage to a nose, as I mentioned, is there's no time limit to reporting a claim with a nose as there is when you purchase a tail. Contractor pollution liability coverage is designed to address the exposures that are excluded by the general liability policy. Contractor pollution liability policies provide coverage for cleanup, restoration, bodily injury, property damage, loss of use, and defense costs. There are several good reasons, as outlined earlier, why plumbers should be carrying pollution coverage. However, as we all know, it's only a matter of time until someone has an uninsured loss. Lawyers are now figuring out that the plumbers are on these restoration jobs before any other contractor. So we're seeing plumbers actually start to get pulled into these losses as well. We're seeing the plumbers, the restoration contractor, the general contractors, everybody that sets foot on a job getting pulled in. And the lawyers have figured out that the plumbers were actually the first one on the job. They put the first hole in the wall, and they're the ones that stop the water, so they're in the liability loop. So it's much smarter to transfer that risk to an insurance carrier as opposed to the plumbing contractor self-insuring that risk on themselves and being bare. You may wish to use coverage as a sales tool for the plumber so that the plumber can obtain more work from large property managers, developers, insurance companies, and TPAs. So the plumber can use this and go out and market themselves and hold themselves out that they're naturally better and that they have coverage that their competition doesn't have, and why they should be hired as opposed to a plumber that's not carrying any pollution coverage at all. So you may wish to consider offering general liability and pollution together on behalf of your clients. To conclude, I'm going to discuss two real-life claim scenarios that we've seen in our agency over the last couple years. The first claim scenario involves a plumber who did his work at an original leak on a pre-1985 structure and did not test for asbestos. The house was actually built in the early 1950s, located in Sun Valley, California, and occupied by an 88-year-old lady. The property owner thought that the adjuster was not treating her fairly because she was an 88-year-old lady. So she went out and hired a public adjuster, and the public adjuster inflated the claim to the maximum. The public adjuster, needless to say, the public adjuster and the insurance company adjuster were not seeing eye to eye. The mitigation company goes out and does the drawing. The reconstruction company went out and hired a certified asbestos consultant to go take bulk samples around the whole place to make sure everything was clean before they did their work. So up to that point, everything is proper. The public adjuster had additional asbestos testing done anyway and found a trace amount in the kitchen. The walls and the floor materials were tested throughout the house by a consultant hired by the general contractor prior to him commencing his work. But since one sample came back hot, the whole place is now considered hot, and all the contractors that have done work on the premises without their workers donning PPE or personal protective equipment. What happens is the carrier pays the property owner, buys all new contents, and pays for abatement and seeks recovery from all the other contractors that set foot on the job, including the plumber. Claim scenario number 2 involves a property owner who had an uncovered water loss. The plumber did his repairs and noticed older microbial growth or black mold in the stud cavity, and it appears that the water has been leaking for quite some time, and it's not a sudden burst or discharge that would normally be covered by insurance, but it was a maintenance issue. It was drip, drip, drip. The adjuster denies the claim as it is not a sudden discharge. And the adjuster even went a step further to have the mold tested to determine the species of the mold. Certain molds grow very rapidly. Certain molds, like Stachybotrys, take weeks and months to develop, and depending on the species of the mold, the adjusters can tell how long the water loss has been going on. The property owner goes out and hires an attorney to go after the insurance company for bad faith and sues everybody who set foot on the job, from the plumber to the restoration contractor to everybody. However, the plumber did not cause the mold. The improper maintenance and the slow leak did cause the mold. However, the plumber still needs to defend the claim. Thank you for the time you've spent viewing this video today. If you have any questions, please send your questions or comments to info@nationallyns.com, or you can visit our website at www.nationallyns.com, Or we can be called at area code 661-266-4444. Once again, thank